Amelia Watson adjusted her white silk blouse and looked at her reflection in the office mirror. A 40-year-old woman with smooth, dark skin and attentive brown eyes, she looked impeccably professional, an image she had carefully maintained during her 15 years of practice. The wall clock read 5 to 10. A new patient was due in 5 minutes. Her office in the prestigious Houston Psychological Center was decorated in calm tones, beige walls, a soft chair for patients, a wooden desk with a laptop and shelves of professional literature. On the desk was a photograph, she and her husband Kurt on vacation in the Bahamas 3 years ago. Amelia ran her finger over the frame. When was the last time they'd gone out together? Kurt was always busy with business, lawsuits, client meetings. One of the most sought-after corporate lawyers in Texas didn't have the luxury of spending much time with his wife. There was a knock on the door, and Dr. Marcus Coleman, the center's director, a tall man in his mid-50s with a neat graying beard, peeked into the office. "Amelia, your new patient is here. It's a difficult case, so I thought I'd refer him to you." "Thank you, Marcus, I'm ready," Amelia nodded. Coleman stepped aside to let the young man into the office. The first thing Amelia noticed were his hands, long fingers with paint stains under their fingernails nervously fiddled with the edges of a sketch pad. Then she looked into his eyes, tense, troubled, but surprisingly expressive. "Dr. Watson, this is Nathan Blair. Nathan, this is Dr. Amelia Watson, one of our top cognitive behavioral therapists," Coleman introduced them, and walked out, closing the door behind him. Nathan hesitantly sat down on the edge of the chair. He looked to be in his 30s with a trim build, short dreadlocks, and a dark t-shirt with a print of an abstract painting. "Hello, Mr. Blair," Amelia began in a soft, professional tone. "Before we begin, I want you to know this is a safe space. Anything you say here will remain between us." Nathan raised his eyes to her, and Amelia saw in them a mixture of distrust and hope. "My previous therapist said that I was hopeless," his voice was low and a little hoarse, "that my anger and emotion control issues were too deeply rooted." "There are no hopeless cases in my practice," Amelia replied calmly. "There are only people who need the right help. Tell me about yourself, Nathan." At first, he spoke reluctantly and curtly. A self-taught artist with signs of borderline personality disorder and anger control problems. Tough childhood in a rough neighborhood in Houston. Bouts of rage that cost him relationships and several jobs. The only thing that brought him peace was drawing. "May I?" Nathan lifted his sketchbook and Amelia nodded. He turned the page and showed a sketch, an abstract image of a human face distorted by the emotions of pain and anger. The drawing was done with astonishing skill. "It's amazing, Nathan," Amelia said sincerely. "You have a real talent." Something flashed in his eyes. Gratitude, surprise at another's recognition. This moment was the first crack in the professional barrier that Amelia had always carefully maintained between herself and her patients. After 3 sessions with Nathan, Amelia found herself looking forward to their meetings. There was something appealing about his complex personality, his unpredictable transitions from vulnerability to rage and back again, his talent and sensitivity. She began to notice the details, the way he wrinkled his forehead as he chose his words, the way his voice changed when he talked about his paintings. At home, Amelia felt increasingly empty. Kurt came home late and dined in silence, absorbed in his legal affairs. After dinner, they usually went to separate rooms, he to his office to continue his work, she to her bedroom with a book or a professional journal. "I got a new case," Kurt said one evening, keeping his eyes on his clipboard. "Big pharmaceutical company, $1 million lawsuit. I'm going to have to stay in the office even longer." "Of course I understand," Amelia replied, unable to hide the note of disappointment in her voice. Kurt lifted his head and looked at her with a look of mild surprise, as if he'd only just realized she was there. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Yeah, just tired," Amelia forced a smile. "Tough day at work." "Is the new patient still giving you problems?" "Nathan? No, with him. Progress." She looked away, feeling suddenly embarrassed, as if Kurt could read her mind. At the 6th session, Nathan brought one of his paintings, a small canvas with an abstract image of a female figure in shades of blue and gold. I thought... He hesitated, nervously fingering the edge of the canvas. It's for you. After our last conversation about transforming negative emotions, Amelia knew that it was not appropriate to accept personal gifts from patients, but something made her reach out and take the painting. It is beautiful, Nathan, she said quietly, looking at the play of colors and lines. It is you, he answered simply. The way I see you. Their eyes met and Amelia felt a shiver run down her spine. In that moment, the barrier between therapist and patient became dangerously thin. At the beginning of the summer, after 2 months of therapy with Nathan, Amelia met with her sister. Jennifer Gardner, a high school literature teacher, was 2 years younger than Amelia. They sat in a quiet cafe in downtown Houston, away from the area where Amelia worked to avoid chance encounters with colleagues or patients. You seem different lately, Jennifer remarked, stirring her iced latte. More animated. Did something happen? Amelia stared at her sister for a long moment, wondering if she should speak. Jennifer was the one person she trusted unconditionally. I'm making a terrible mistake, Jen, she finally exhaled. Professionally and personally. Jennifer leaned forward, concern in her eyes. What are you talking about? One of my patients. Amelia lowered her voice to a whisper. I think I feel more for him than I should. Amelia! Jennifer covered her mouth with her hand in horror. You could lose your license. What about Kurt? Kurt has barely noticed my existence for the last 2 years. Amelia grinned bitterly. We live like roommates. And yet that's no excuse for... Jennifer hesitated, searching for words. For violating professional ethics and your marriage vows. I know. Amelia ran her hand over her face. Believe me, I know, but when I'm around Nathan, I feel alive. He sees me, not as a doctor, not as someone's wife, but just as a woman, as a human being. Nathan? Jennifer frowned. The one with the anger issues, Ami, that sounds dangerous. He's not what he seems. He has depth, sensitivity, talent. Listen to yourself. Jennifer shook her head. You sound like a schoolgirl in love, not an experienced psychologist. What exactly is going on between you two? Amelia stared into her coffee cup, not daring to raise her eyes to her sister. Nothing so far. Physical. But this connection, this attraction, it's strong, Jen. Stronger than anything I've felt in years. You need to stop working with him, Jennifer said firmly. Transfer him to another therapist. Immediately. I can't, Amelia whispered. I'm the only one he trusts. He's making progress. If I leave him now. And if you don't, then what? Jennifer stepped forward. Where does it go from here, Ami? Are you willing to risk everything? Your career, your marriage, your reputation for this man? Amelia didn't answer. She couldn't even admit to herself that she was already teetering on the edge, that every session with Nathan was becoming more and more personal, that the boundaries between them were blurring at an alarming rate. Promise me that you will be careful, Jennifer said with genuine concern in her voice, and that you'll consider referring him to another specialist. I promise, Amelia lied, knowing she couldn't do it. The first kiss happened after the 8th session. They stayed in the office after the official time. Nathan talked about his childhood, about his mother, who had struggled with addiction, about the father he had never known. He spoke confusingly, emotionally, at times his voice broke. Amelia listened, sitting next to him rather than in her usual chair across from him. At one point, she instinctively took his hand. It was a gesture of support, which she could explain by professional empathy. But when Nathan raised his eyes to her, full of gratitude and something else, deeper, more dangerous, she did not pull away. No one has ever listened to me as you have, he said quietly. Nathan, she started, but did not finish the sentence. Their lips met in a kiss that was both tender and desperate. Part of Amelia's consciousness screamed that something irreparable was happening, that she was violating all possible professional and personal boundaries. But the other part, the part that was hungry for real intimacy and passion, drowned out that voice of reason. When they finally pulled away from each other, Amelia saw in Nathan's eyes a reflection of her own emotions, a mixture of excitement, fear, and the realization that there was no turning back. I know it's wrong, he whispered. That I am your patient, that you have a husband. but I can't help it. You're the only person who's ever understood me." Amelia had to stop everything at that very moment. Explain that what had happened was a mistake, that they needed to get back to a professional relationship, or what would be the right thing to do, she should refer him to another therapist. Instead, she felt her own fingers reach for his face, tracing the outline of his cheekbone. "I know," she said. "I can't help myself either." Over the next few weeks, their relationship grew rapidly. Formal sessions became an excuse to meet. Therapy ceased to be therapy, becoming a confusing mix of passion, addiction, and mutual obsession disguised as professional help. They met after work, in Amelia's office when the center was empty, or in the small art studio Nathan rented on the outskirts of the city. Amelia justified her late comings home with work meetings and conferences. Kurt, immersed in his work, rarely asked questions. Inside Amelia, guilt grew, mixed with an intoxicating sense of newness and passion. Deep down, she knew that the fragile world of illusion they had built could not last, that sooner or later reality would burst into their little bubble and destroy everything. But for the first time in years, she felt truly alive, and that feeling was stronger than the voice of reason, stronger than the fear of consequences. The fall Texas sun cast a golden light on Amelia's office. Outside the window, yellowed tree leaves rustled, reminding her of the transience of time. 3 months had passed since the beginning of her affair with Nathan. 3 months of lies, secret meetings, and constant guilt. Amelia sat at her desk, going through her notes, but her thoughts were far away. Last night, Kurt had unexpectedly suggested celebrating their 12th wedding anniversary with a weekend trip. "I know I've been too busy lately," he said, looking at her with an unaccustomed softness. "But I want to make up for it. I think we both need time just for the two of us." His words sent her into a fit of such intense shame that she could hardly breathe. Suddenly, she saw herself from the outside, a woman who had betrayed not only her professional principles, but also the man who, despite his busyness, still cared about her, about their marriage. There was a knock on the door and Nathan entered the office, without an appointment, outside of his schedule. It was becoming more and more frequent. He would show up at the center, saying he had an urgent session. The staff began to give him questioning looks, which Amelia studiously ignored. "Nathan," she said quietly, "what are you doing here? We don't have a session today. I had to see you." He quickly closed the door behind him. His eyes glittered feverishly, and his hands trembled slightly. "I couldn't wait until tomorrow." Amelia noticed that he had come without his drawing pad for the first time. Instead, he was nervously clutching a bouquet of lilies, her favorite flowers that she had once casually mentioned. "We can't go on like this," she said, getting up from the table. "It's not right, Nathan. I am your therapist. I am married. We are violating every possible ethical boundary." "You can't say that," his voice shook. "Not after everything that's happened between us. I need you, Amelia. You're the only person who understands me. I'm supposed to understand you as a professional, not as—" she stammered, unable to say the word mistress. "Like what?" He took a step toward her, and Amelia instinctively backed away. Something in his gaze made her inwardly tense. "Say it." "Nathan, please," she tried to speak calmly, using the same professional tone she had used during their first sessions. "We need to return to a therapeutic relationship. Or more appropriately, I need to refer you to another specialist." "No!" He threw the bouquet violently on the table. Several petals broke off and fell onto Amelia's papers. "I'm not going to let you get rid of me. You're not like the others. You can't just take me out of your life." His voice rose to a dangerous volume, and Amelia cast a worried glance at the door. "Nathan, calm down," she said quietly but firmly. "We are in a professional institution. If you can't control your emotions, we will have to end this conversation." The mention of control, a key topic in their therapy sessions, had worked. Nathan took a deep breath, his shoulders slumped, but his eyes still looked at her with an intensity that was disturbing. "I'm sorry," he said. "I just can't imagine my life without you. You're the only good thing I have." "That's not true," Amelia objected softly. "You have your talent, your art. You've come a long way in therapy. Don't let our mistake undo all your progress." "Mistake," he repeated the word with bitterness. What we have between us was not a mistake. You love me, Amelia. I know that. She didn't answer. Part of her did have deep feelings for him, but now, looking at his emotionally distorted face, she saw not only passion and affection, but dangerous signs of addiction, of obsession. I need time, she said at last. We both need time to think about the situation. Nathan looked at her silently for a few long seconds, then nodded slowly. Good, he said in an unnaturally calm voice. Time, I understand. He turned and walked out of the office. Amelia sank into the chair, feeling her hands shake. Something in his tone, in his gaze, caused her a deep, instinctive unease. 2 days later, Amelia noticed a familiar figure in the parking lot of the center as she left work. Nathan was sitting in a shabby blue sedan, watching the entrance. When their eyes met, he didn't look away or make an attempt to hide. Instead, he slowly started the engine and followed her, keeping a distance of several cars. It happened again the next day, and the day after that. Sometimes he would wait for her outside her house, parking on the opposite side of the street. Called in the middle of the night and was silent when she answered. Sent dozens of messages, going from pleading to accusations to threats. I can't live without you. Why are you hurting me? You're just like everyone else, a traitor. I know you still love me. I can see it in your eyes. If I can't be with you, no one will. Friday night, Amelia was driving back from work. The rain was pouring down in a wall, turning the road into a blur behind the windshield. Suddenly, in her rearview mirror, she saw the headlights of Nathan's car, which was moving too close. Her heart sped up. She increased her speed, and he accelerated too, almost clinging to her bumper. Amelia turned onto a side street, hoping to pull away, but he followed her. At one point, he overtook her and braked sharply, forcing her to stop. Nathan jumped out of the car in the pouring rain and ran to her window. Open up! He shouted, knocking on the glass. Amelia, please, we need to talk! She shook her head, clutching the steering wheel. Terror paralyzed her. Nathan banged on the window harder. I know you still love me. His voice sounded muffled through the glass and the sound of the rain. It's because of him, isn't it? Because of your husband. Is he standing between us? Amelia found the strength to step on the gas, driving around his car on the side of the road. In the rearview mirror, she saw Nathan standing in the rain, his figure gradually disappearing into the fog and darkness. You look exhausted, Kurt noticed at breakfast on Sunday morning. Is everything all right? Amelia avoided his gaze, concentrating on her cup of coffee. Just a lot of work, she lied. Are you sure? He put the paper aside and looked at her carefully. You haven't been yourself lately. Nervous, distracted. I've seen you checking windows and doors several times. Everything's fine, she repeated, trying to make her voice sound convincing. Really? At that moment, the cell phone rang. Amelia flinched. She knew who it was before she even looked at the screen. Aren't you going to answer it? Kurt asked. It's a patient, she dismissed the call. I'll call you back later. The phone immediately rang again and again. Amelia finally turned it off, feeling her husband's questioning gaze on her. Is something serious going on? He insisted. Amelia, I know you don't want to talk about your patients, but if you're in danger... No, everything is under control, she assured him hastily, trying to keep her hands from trembling. It's just a complicated case. I have to go. I have a meeting with Jennifer. She almost ran out of the house, feeling relieved that she actually had a meeting scheduled with her sister. The lies were getting more and more convoluted, and she was afraid that at some point she just wouldn't be able to hold on to all the threads. Is he stalking you? Jennifer's voice was filled with unconcealed horror. Amelia, you must go to the police. They were sitting in a small cafe on the outskirts of the city, where Amelia was sure she would not meet Nathan or her colleagues. I can't. Amelia held her cup of tea in her hands. If I file a complaint, everything will be known. Our relationship, the violation of professional ethics. I'd lose my license. Kurt will find out. Kurt will find out either way if that man continues to stalk you. Jennifer covered her sister's hand with her own. Or worse, if he hurts you. He won't hurt me. Amelia shook her head, but there was no confidence in her voice. He's just emotionally unstable. Emotionally unstable? Jennifer repeated incredulously. Ami, can you hear yourself? You sound like a domestic violence victim defending her abuser. A psychologist should see all the signs of dangerous behavior in you. Amelia closed her eyes. Jennifer was right. If a patient had come to her with the same story, she would have insisted on going to the police immediately and getting an order of protection. But her own situation seemed so confusing, so irreparable, that she saw no way out. At least talk to Dr. Coleman, Jennifer insisted. After all, Nathan is a patient at the center. The director must know what's going on. Marcus would fire me on the spot if he found out that I had a relationship with a patient. Amelia grinned bitterly. I'd rather lose my job than my life, Jennifer replied stiffly. Promise me you'll think about it. Amelia nodded reluctantly, although she knew in her heart that she would still try to solve the problem on her own, hoping that Nathan would calm down and leave her alone. On Monday morning, when Amelia arrived at work, there was an unsigned envelope on her desk. Inside, she found several pictures of her and Kurt's house, taken from different angles, at different times of the day. In one picture, Kurt was getting out of the car. In another, she was standing at the bedroom window. It was obvious that the pictures had been taken with a long focal length. From a decent distance, the pictures were accompanied by a note. I'm always here for you. You can't run away from me. Amelia's hands trembled so violently that she dropped the envelope. The pictures scattered across the floor. At that moment, Dr. Coleman entered the office without knocking. Amelia, we need... He stammered as he saw the photos strewn across the floor and his colleague's pale face. What's going on? She couldn't answer, only shook her head, feeling panic rising in her throat. Marcus bent down and picked up one of the photos, then another. His face grew more and more serious. Who did this? He asked, though it was clear from his tone that he had already guessed. Marcus, I can explain, Amelia began, but he interrupted her. It's Blair, isn't it? His voice was quiet but firm. I've noticed the way he looks at you. How often he shows up here without an appointment. Several staff members have told me about the oddities in his behavior. Amelia remained silent, unable to either confirm or deny his words. Amelia. Marcus stepped closer and put his hand on her shoulder. Whatever is going on, you have to tell me. The center is responsible for the safety of its employees and patients. She looked up at him, her eyes full of tears. In that moment, she wanted to tell him everything about her weakness, about her cruel mistake, about the fear that now haunted her day and night. But to confess would mean the end of everything. Her career, her marriage, her reputation. He became too attached to me, she finally said cautiously. Sometimes that happens in therapy. Transference, projection. I've tried to set boundaries, but he won't accept them. It was a half-truth, close enough to the truth to sound convincing, but hiding her own role in the development of the situation. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, and Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that he was seeing more than she was willing to show. I'm going to suspend him from the center, he finally said, and I'll recommend another therapist, perhaps at another facility. And you should think about filing a police report, Amelia. These pictures, it's beyond simple affection. I'll deal with it, she said, trying to make her voice sound more confident than she felt. Thank you, Marcus. When he left, Amelia gathered up the photos and tucked them away in her desk drawer. Her hands were still trembling. She knew she had to act, to protect herself and Kurt, but every path she saw in front of her led to the destruction of everything she'd built. Suddenly, her phone vibrated. A new message from Nathan. I saw you talking to him. What did you talk about? What did you tell him about me? You're betraying me, Amelia. You're betraying me again. But I won't let you get rid of me, ever. Amelia dropped the phone in horror. He was here, watching the center, watching her. The thought of Nathan always around, always watching her, brought on another wave of panic. She began to gasp. The room swam before her eyes. With difficulty, she reached the chair and sank into it, trying to regain her breath. What have I done? She thought, wrapping her arms around her head. What am I going to do now? But there was no answer. Only a growing sense of dread and the realization that she had driven herself into a trap from which there might be no escape. The iron bell above the door jingled softly, as Nathan entered the hardware store on the outskirts of Houston. The clerk, an elderly man with a gray mustache, looked away from the crossword puzzle and gave him an indifferent look. "What can I do for you?" "I need an axe." Nathan's voice sounded calm, almost detached. "What kind of axe?" The salesman adjusted his glasses. "Is it for camping, gardening, or chopping wood?" "For work," Nathan answered after a short pause. "Something strong and sharp." The salesman led him to the tool stand. Nathan examined the options carefully, weighing each one in his hand, running his finger along the blade to check the sharpness. Finally, he chose a large axe with a strong handle made of American hickory and a heavy steel blade. "Good choice," the salesman nodded. "It's a quality piece and will last a long time." "Yes, I hope so," Nathan answered quietly and took out his wallet. When he returned home, he put the axe on the table in his small studio. In the last weeks, he had hardly painted at all. His inspiration had left him, replaced by an all-consuming obsession. The walls were covered with portraits of Amelia, in different poses, with different facial expressions, but always with the same eyes looking directly at him. Nathan sat down on a chair in front of an easel with an unfinished painting. It showed Amelia standing in a doorway, wearing a flowing blue dress. But the face remained unfinished, a shapeless blur of beige paint. An open laptop stood in the corner of the studio. On the screen were pictures. Amelia leaving the center, getting into a car, having coffee with her sister, coming home with her husband. They had all been taken surreptitiously, from a distance, but they gave the illusion of a permanent presence in her life. Nathan picked up the phone and tried to call her again. After the third ring, the voicemail came on. "Why don't you answer?" He whispered into the emptiness of the room. "What have I done wrong?" He looked at the axe lying on the table and slowly ran his hand over the smooth wooden handle. Jennifer tapped her fingers nervously on the steering wheel, waiting for Amelia to leave the psychology center building. Her sister had called her in the afternoon, voice trembling with poorly concealed fear. "He sent me a dead bird," Amelia said, barely holding back tears. "In an envelope, to my work address, with a note that said, 'This is how betrayal ends.'" Jennifer had immediately offered to meet her after work and walk her home. Now she waited tensely at the doors of the center, ready to see Nathan there at any moment. Finally, Amelia appeared, looking around quickly before crossing the parking lot. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, nervous movements, a dull look in her eyes. "You look awful," Jennifer said as her sister got into the car. "Thanks for the compliment," Amelia grinned mirthlessly. "Did you tell Kurt?" "No." Amelia turned away from the window. "I can't." "Did you go to the police?" "No." She shook her head. "This isn't just about career, Jen. If this gets out, I'll lose everything." Jennifer pulled over to the curb and turned to her sister. "Listen to me, Amelia. A dead bird in an envelope is no joke. This is the behavior of a serial killer from a crime movie. If you don't go to the police, I'll do it myself." "You have no right to interfere." Amelia flared up. "Yes, I do. Because you're my sister, and I don't want to recognize your body in the morgue in a week." Amelia covered her face with her hands. When she spoke, her voice sounded muffled and desperate. "I'll talk to Dr. Coleman tomorrow, and I'll think about the police. I promise." "Okay," Jennifer softened a little. "I'll take you home tonight and make sure you tell Kurt at least part of the truth. He needs to know that you're both in danger." "Kurt's working late today," Amelia replied. "A big case, an important client. He'll be back late." "Then I'll stay with you until he gets here," Jennifer said firmly. Amelia wanted to object, but deep down she was grateful for her sister's insistence. Fear was slowly becoming her constant companion, like an invisible shadow following her everywhere. As they pulled up to the Watson house, a spacious two-story building in a quiet, respectable neighborhood, Amelia tensely surveyed the street. "There's no one here," Jennifer reassured her. "But I'll walk you to the door anyway." Inside the house, the first thing Amelia did was check all the windows and doors, making sure twice that they were locked. Jennifer watched this ritual in silence, her face expressing a mixture of concern and sympathy. "You can't live like this forever," she said quietly. "I know." Amelia sank down on the couch in the living room. "It's just that I need some time to make things right." "There may not be time." Jennifer sat down next to her and took her sister's hand. Ami, listen to me. I see what you refuse to see. This man is dangerous. He won't stop. I just wanted to help him, Amelia whispered. How could things have turned out like this? Jennifer hugged her sister, not knowing what to say. An hour later, after making sure Amelia had calmed down a bit, she reluctantly got ready to leave. She had an important faculty meeting at school that she couldn't miss. Call me as soon as Kurt gets back, she insisted. And talk to Coleman and go to the police tomorrow. Promise? I promise. Amelia nodded, walking her sister to the door. When Jennifer left, Amelia double-checked the lock again. Then she turned on all the lights in the house, unable to tolerate even the slightest shadow. She tried to distract herself with her work, reviewing patient records, making notes for upcoming sessions. But her thoughts kept returning to Nathan. Deep down, she knew that Jennifer was right, that she had to tell Kurt everything tonight, despite her fear of losing his respect and love. That she had to go to the police tomorrow, whatever the consequences to her career. She even started writing a police report while sitting at the kitchen table, detailing all the incidents of harassment, the threats, the dead bird. But she didn't have time to finish. The shadows on the lot in front of the Watsons' house grew longer as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Nathan sat in his car, parked 2 houses away, watching. He saw Jennifer arrive, saw her hug Amelia goodbye at the door, saw the lights come on in the different rooms of the house, Amelia moving around inside, always surrounded by bright lights, as if she was afraid of the dark. Kurt was not home yet. Nathan knew his schedule by heart. He had an important client meeting tonight and would not be back until 10 o'clock. He had time. He looked at the axe lying on the passenger seat, wrapped in burlap new, shiny, perfectly sharpened. Then he looked at his phone. The screensaver was a picture of Amelia, which he had taken secretly while she was laughing with a colleague in a cafe. He loved that picture. It made her look so alive, so real. Not like now, when every time she saw him she looked away, when her shoulders tensed and her face showed fear. He dialed her number, knowing she wouldn't answer. After the 4th beep, the voicemail went straight to voicemail. I love you, Amelia, he said softly. I will always love you, even when we're together in the dark. He put the phone down and picked up the axe, feeling a pleasant heaviness in his hand. Then he got out of the car and walked leisurely toward the Watsons' house, holding the tool under the burlap. In the thickening dusk, his dark figure almost blended with the shadows. Amelia was finishing writing her police report when she heard a noise in the backyard. Something had fallen or crashed. She froze, listening. Maybe the wind had thrown something off the patio? Or had the neighbor's cat knocked over the plant pot again? She got up from the table and walked slowly to the glass door leading to the backyard. It was hard to see anything in the dark. Amelia turned on the outside lights and peered into the garden. No one. But one of the garden gnomes Kurt had collected was lying on its side, its severed head rolled back onto the lawn. Amelia laughed nervously. She should be so frightened by a fallen statuette. The stress of the last few weeks was taking its toll on her nerves. She was about to return to the table when she caught a glimpse of movement near the garden fence. A shadow slipped between the bushes. Her heart froze, and then beat with redoubled speed. Amelia quickly backed away from the door and grabbed the phone. Who should she call? The police? Kurt? Jennifer? Her hands were shaking so badly that she misdialed her husband's number twice. Kurt! She exhaled when he finally answered. I think there's someone here in the backyard. I'm not sure, but... Ami, calm down. Her husband's voice sounded concerned. Did you check that all the doors are locked? Yes, but... Good. I'm on my way. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Call the police, tell them there's a possible break-in. You lock yourself in our bedroom and don't come out until I get there. Okay. Amelia tried to speak calmly, but her voice trembled. Hurry up, please. She hung up and started dialing 911, but that's when she heard the sound of breaking glass from the first-floor guest bathroom. The call to the police was cut off, the phone falling out of her hands. Amelia rushed to the stairs to the 2nd floor, but she had not taken 3 steps before she saw him. Nathan was standing in the doorway leading from the hallway to the kitchen. In his hand he held an axe. Hello, Amelia. His voice sounded almost tender, as in the days when they had been together. I've missed you. She moved away, not taking her eyes off the shining blade of the axe. Nathan! Her voice was barely audible. What are you doing? What I have to do. He took a step forward and Amelia stepped back even further. You gave me no choice. You gave up on us. Please go away, she pleaded. Kurt's coming now, and the police too. Kurt, Nathan said her husband's name with such hatred that Amelia shuddered. Always Kurt. He's been between us since the beginning, but today it ends. We'll be together, Amelia, forever. He moved toward her with the determination of a predator cornering prey. Amelia retreated until her back was against the wall of the living room. Nathan, please, her voice broke into a sob. We can talk. I'll help you. I don't need help. He stopped a few steps away from her. I need you, just you. And if I can't have you here, we'll be together out there in the dark. In his eyes, Amelia saw what she feared most, a complete lack of doubt, the eyes of a man who had crossed a line beyond which there was no return. I love you, Amelia, he said, raising the axe. I will always love you. She screamed as he lunged forward and tried to dodge. The blade of the axe whistled through the air, striking her shoulder. A sharp pain shot through her body, but the adrenaline dulled it, and Amelia rushed to the front door. Nathan caught up with her at the door. A second blow struck her back, and Amelia fell, feeling warm blood soaking her blouse. She tried to crawl, clawing at the floorboards with her fingernails, but her strength was quickly draining away. The last thing she heard was the sound of the front door opening and Kurt's voice calling her name. Then darkness fell. Jennifer found out what had happened at 6 a.m. when she received a call from the police. The sergeant's voice sounded monotone, as if he were reading out a standard text. Miss Gardner? I need you to come to the Central Police Station. It's about your sister, Amelia Watson, and her husband, Kurt Watson. What happened? Her voice was shaking with foreboding. I'd prefer to discuss it in person, ma'am, but she already knew. Somehow, deep down inside, she already knew she was late. That they were all late. As she entered the police station, she saw Dr. Coleman talking to 2 detectives. When he saw her, he cut the conversation short and walked over quickly, his face gray with fatigue and shock. Jennifer, he took her hand. I'm so sorry. They're both dead, aren't they? She asked bluntly, seeing no point in beating around the bush. Marcus nodded, unable to say it out loud. Nathan Blair? She asked after a pause. Yes, everything points to him, Marcus answered. They're looking for him. I tried to warn her, Jennifer whispered, tears welling up in her throat. I knew this would be the end of it. The detective, a thin woman with short, graying hair, walked up to them and introduced herself. Detective Robinson, I need to ask you some questions, Miss Gardner. Over the next few hours, Jennifer revealed everything she knew about Amelia's relationship with Nathan, the breach of professional ethics, the harassment, how her sister had refused to go to the police for fear of losing her career and her husband. And Dr. Coleman also testified, admitting that he suspected something was wrong, but couldn't imagine how serious the situation was. If I had known, his voice trembled, I would have insisted on police protection. I wouldn't have let her go home alone. By midday, it was reported that Nathan Blair had been found in his studio. He had killed himself, leaving a note and his last painting, a portrait of Amelia and himself embracing against a blood-red sunset. The funeral took place a week later. It was a cloudy day, with low clouds threatening heavy rain, as if nature itself was grieving for what had happened. Jennifer stood next to Dr. Coleman, watching the 2 coffins being lowered into the ground. Amelia and Kurt's co-workers, a few friends and relatives had gathered around. If I had insisted on police protection, Marcus said quietly when the ceremony was over. We all could have done more, Jennifer replied, looking at the fresh graves. But ultimately it was her choice not to seek help. Out of fear of losing everything, Marcus shook his head, and she ended up losing her life. They walked slowly toward the cemetery exit. The rain was finally starting to let up, turning the red Texas soil to mud. What are you going to do now? Marcus asked. I don't know, Jennifer answered honestly. Go on with my life, I guess. What else is there left? She knew that for a long time she would wake up at night thinking about what she could have done differently. that she could have insisted harder, perhaps even against her sister's wishes, to go to the police, that she could have stayed with her that night, despite the important faculty meeting. Jennifer looked back at her sister and brother-in-law's graves one last time, then resolutely turned and staggered toward the exit. There was a life to be lived and the memory of her sister to be preserved.